What's going on, guys? It's Seth back with another Defense Wins Fantasy. You know, it's funny how quickly time will go. We're now into June. May is left behind us, and now we're really starting to get into the nitty-gritty. We've got 2 months, really, before we start taking drafts seriously. As far as redraft leagues, some of your dynasty leagues might have already been drafted of the rookie drafts. Startup dynasties are kind of going on right now. But the point is that we want to make sure that we have all of our audiences taken care of. And one thing that we really didn't do last year is just talk about redraft rankings by position. I get it. There's a lot of resources out there, but I'll tell you what. I take a lot of time and I really look at the situations, understanding the coaching staffs, and try to give you the best outcome there. And I also take some risks, okay? So am I going to hit every single one of these? Obviously not. Nobody actually does. But I will give you the logic behind why I think these are the right decisions to take. So when we talk about redraft, we're going to talk about, the stars that have aligned. We're going to talk about the top 10 linebackers and the top 10 DNs rankings this evening. I am breaking down D tackles separately, and I will break down D tackles, cornerbacks, and safeties on a separate podcast next week. So I say all that to say, what does that mean, like, as far as with redraft IDP leagues? How do we look at our defensive players in those eyes, right? Obviously, we have a significant time to wait, per se, when we get to the defensive players in most leagues. The scoring is set up in a manner that doesn't cater to the defensive players. You all know my thoughts on that. It is what it is in most leagues. And then when you go to, say, let's say, Sleeper, and you try to look at some of the rankings, they're just awful, okay? We don't have really good data on IDP rankings. There's a few reasons for that. One, it's just not as popular, so a lot of sites aren't putting resources in and scouting it and looking at it and trying to understand it. Two, scoring is massively variable in defensive leagues compared to offensive. Offensive leagues kind of have came and settled down into a standard, right? I feel like the defensive side of the ball is still trying to go from just touchdown scoring, like when fantasy football started, to having, all of the rushing, receiving yard type things to PPR, but they're trying to do all of them at the exact same time. There's no progression because fantasy's been around a while. People kind of get it. The technology is more advanced to be able to put in all these things. So people just kind of put together what they think is best, and it leads for inconsistency when it comes to ranking. Are you having a very high score for impact plays like sacks and interceptions? Or are you tackle-heavy league? Is it something where you have cornerbacks that are playing separately versus safeties? And, that's something that on the offensive side of the ball we really don't have. Yeah, we have a flex position, but we don't have positions that are like, we don't have running backs and fullbacks. I mean, kind of we do, but obviously there's no value there. But we don't have wide receivers and tight ends as one position. That's it. We created a flex over time, but because we typically have just D-line and D-backs, there's a lot of kind of skewing of our rankings because if you're in a cornerback league, the cornerbacks might be taken a little bit earlier because of the high-volume guys that you feel are better. But that cornerback that's way better than the rest of the cornerbacks might not actually even be in the top 25 D-backs because safeties are so prominent with their tackles. That's what I'm getting at. Same kind of thing with D-tackles. In D-tackles, at least you get a few unicorns like Aaron Donald that just dominate the D-line no matter what. But because of that, the rankings are very hard to find. That's what I'm getting back at. And so I'm here tonight. We're going to talk through my linebackers and my DNs. And there are some surprises. I will say that. I am an upside lover. I think that there's things that make sense, and we're going to talk about it. So we're going to start with linebackers first. And my first linebacker is not necessarily a shock, and that is Roquan Smith of the Baltimore Ravens. Let's just get it out there. This guy is an absolute stud. I just love this player and everything that he does. And last year he was traded middle of the season from the Bears to the Ravens, and it hurt him a little bit. Middle of the season, he had a little bit of a downtrodden space, and down for him is still LB top 24, but he did pick it up by the end of the year. Now with the full offseason to understand the system, understand the defensive scheme that he is now in, this will allow him to flourish. He's gone from different defensive schemes before, playing for the Bears, different regimes, but playing in this Baltimore defense is going to be so good for him. And the thing that I love about him the most is that he's the most versatile linebacker in the NFL today. He can easily finish linebacker one. He can rush the passer. He can take picks to the house. He can lead the league in tackles. He's the only guy, in my opinion, that's very dominant in those three things. Yeah, you can talk about a Micah Parsons. I will say, spoiler, I don't have him even listed as a linebacker. I consider him a defensive end at this point in time. And that's where he's at. But with Roquan, the fact of the matter is he is so talented. He can get the 160 tackles, no problem. Throw on 4 interceptions and 5 sacks and call it a year. He's dominant. He's going to be in a great situation. I feel like he's just going to take this defense to the next level, but he's going to end up at LB1 this year. So LB2 is a guy that a lot of people have been fading this year, and I learned my lesson last year. It's Foyesade Olokin for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Yeah, I know. Devin Lloyd is there and Chad Muma is there. They were there last year, and it didn't matter then. It's not going to matter now. He's got back-to-back 180-plus tackle seasons. That's what makes me a believer. He has a nose for the football like nobody else. I thought it was maybe just an Atlanta thing. He moves to Jacksonville, have a little bit of a drop-off. No. This guy knows what he's doing. He knows how to get on the field and make the tackles. He's going to be on the field all the time. Lloyd and Muma are the ones that I'm a little bit more concerned about their playing time being flexed between the two of them. Olokin's not going to be that guy. When push comes to shove, this is a guy that I'd love to have on my team because of the week in, week out consistency. He's even going to have probably a little bit more of a consistency high score than Roquan. Roquan's still going to have a very high floor, but Foyesade is a very, very high floor, but that's also about where his ceiling is. He can make some big plays, but he's there to stop the runner. He's there to hit the guy coming across the middle. He's there to bring the pain. Foyesade Olokin for the Jaguars comes in at number 2 linebacker for me this year. Number 3 is a guy into his 3rd year in the NFL. Breakout season last year. You heard it from me last year that he was going to finish in the top 5. And here he is in my top 3 this year, and that is Nick Bolton. 180 total tackles last year. Whew, that's a heck of a second year. Listen, he created a name for himself as a high-floor producer last season. Coming into last season, why did I like him? His tackle efficiency was extremely high, almost scary high to where you weren't sure if it was sustainable. Not only did he maintain a high tackling efficiency, but he added to his tackling by getting more playing time. Coming in as a rookie, didn't get all the snaps. Coming in as a sophomore into the NFL, he got all of them. He led this defense to a Super Bowl. He is the quarterback of this defense. And the thing is that we might not have seen the best of Nick Bolton yet. That's what's exciting about him. He's only in his 3rd year as a pro. He's young. He's athletic. And he's got such a high tackling efficiency. And he had big plays last year. Not as many as, say, Roquan, but he can rush the passer to an extent. He's even better in coverage than I thought he'd be. Had a couple interceptions. Nick Bolton has a pretty clear path to staying in the top 5 this year. So he comes in at number 3 at my linebacker rankings. Now, number 4 is the guy that had me eating crow last year to an extent. He started slow, finished with some big plays and did it in a way that didn't necessarily match his previous year's productivity. But this is Bobby Wagner. You can call me crazy for putting him in my top 5, and I probably am. But he finished high last year on the Rams. He's coming back home to Seattle Seahawks. And we're talking about this season. Brooks is coming back from a torn ACL. Wagner knows this system like the back of his hand. In 2021, Bobby's last year there, both Brooks and Wagner were in the top 5 in tackles. They were both in the top 3 for total tackles on the season. Wagner's going to have a great one-year resurgence with the Seattle Seahawks. And I expect him to finish very high, barring injury, even if Jordan Brooks comes back. Like I said, in 2021, they both were top 5 in LBs with tackles. There's enough to go around. And I can see Wagner finishing in the top 5 and probably for the last time in his career, unless maybe he re-signs with the Seahawks for next season. He is on a 1-year deal, so we'll see what happens after this year. But we're talking about redraft. We're talking about this season. Put him in your top 5. Now, number 5. That's where Seth gets more crazy. Pete Werner. I beat the drum for this dude last offseason. I told everybody that was willing to listen to me and their mothers, Zach Wilson, he knows what he's doing. I told him that Pete Werner was the dude. Tackle Hoss. And what did he do last season? He went out and through half the year led the league in solo tackles. Then he got banged up. And that hurt him down the stretch. He tried to come back, wasn't really right. Ended up, I think, pulling a hamstring, which, because he was probably putting more weight or kind of running differently, caused him to basically miss out on the back half of the season for all intents and purposes. Well, Caden Ellis, who took over for Werner, is gone. He went to Atlanta. Demario Davis, who is the ageless wonder, is still another year older. Werner is there to take everything from everybody all at once on this defense. And look at the teams in their division. Young quarterback, bad O-line in Tampa. Rookie quarterback, heavy run first offense, most likely in Carolina. Second year quarterback, first round top 10 pick running back in Atlanta. These offenses are going to be short passes across the middle and running the ball a lot, which means that Pete Werner, for 6 games out of the season, is going to get 10-plus tackles in those games. With Werner, though, there is one concern. Injury, it happened. I'm not too concerned about that being some sort of a repeat this year. My biggest concern is that I don't know what his ability is to do more than just get tackles. Can he do more than just getting 10 tackles a game? Don't get me wrong, 10 tackles a game, 170 tackles in the season, pretty nice year. That's absolutely doable for Werner. And the fact that he gets so many solo tackles in leagues that give you more points for solo tackles, even better. But for him to really move into that next echelon, he's got to get some big plays. I feel like he makes just enough big plays this year to put him in the top 5 on linebackers by the end of the season. And I expect that Pete Werner will lead the league in solo tackles in 2023. So number 6, right? So many good names still out there, Seth. Who's number 6? What if I told you it's Nakobe Dean? Here it is. Are you ready for the Dean experience in Philly? He's in a defense where they believe in giving all of the snaps to the starter. Nakobe Dean's going to have more than 95% of the snaps as a linebacker. He's calling the plays. On top of that, he has 2 massively talented, first-round talented defensive tackles in his front to keep him clean when attacking the ball. You don't think that matters? Ask Ray Lewis how important Haloti Ngata was to his second half of his career. And just, it's so valuable to have somebody that's going to take up the blockers, so that you can run clean at the running backs. He is an athletic, high IQ football player that is going to surprise a lot of people this year. He's got a great opportunity, and he's going to run with it. So last year, TJ Edwards had 159 tackles, 2 sacks. Dean can easily repeat that and maybe throw in a couple interceptions because he's got ball hawking ability. He's smart. He basically redshirted last year, got his mind right, got his body right, let the game slow down to him. And the one game that he kind of had a decent amount of snaps in, he had like 11 tackles. So don't count out Nakobe Dean. Don't think that I'm crazy thinking that a guy's going to come in and just blow up linebacker rankings this year, because he is. And it's going to be fun to watch. And here's the thing. Redraft leagues, right? You take a Roquan, you take a Forrest Loken, you take a Nick Bolton. Those guys are pretty well known. Those guys are going to go early. What if I told you that you could average maybe a 1.5 less than those guys and draft Nakobe Dean in like the 16th round? Pull the trigger. Just because they're ranked high in my rankings doesn't mean you draft them where I'm ranking them at. You get the value, man. That's where you win. And Nakobe Dean is going to be one of the most valuable fantasy players in this draft year. IDP, of course. So let's move on to number 7. And that's Dre Greenlaw for the San Francisco 49ers. Last year, 15 games, 127 tackles. Greenlaw is quietly taking over LB1 in San Francisco fantasy-wise. Yeah, it's happening. Fred Warner is sliding into the LB2 as far as fantasy points on this team. The biggest concern with Greenlaw, though, is health. He's missed some games over the last few years, but when healthy, Dre is a force and puts up big numbers. He has explosion games. He's the kind of guy that you have a linebacker that wins you a week. And I expect him to lead the 49ers linebackers. I expect him to finish in the top 10 for linebackers in the NFL in general. And I'm hoping that he finally sees 17 games this year, because that's what the difference is between him actually making it into the top 10 and not. It's not about points per game, because he's there. It's all about enough games to get there. Moving on to number 8. I have Devin White for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Listen, Mr. White has been suffering the last few years from the Tom Brady curse. The offense has been good. The defense has not had as many opportunities to make plays. Tom Brady, for a lot of his drives, are a little bit more slow and methodical. Short passes, running, a good balance of run and pass. The fact of the matter is, Devin White should see an uptick in his tackles this season because he's going to be on the field more. This offense is not going to be spectacular. I'm not saying it's going to be terrible or bad, but it's not going to be Tom Brady led, and that's going to cause it to drop back some. But here's the thing. His sack numbers that Devin White typically gets, we're probably not going to see 9, which we saw a few years ago with him. We're probably not going to see that. But if Devin gets over 150 tackles and has 5 sacks, he'll be back in the top 10 for fantasy. He's got some big play making ability. I would have liked him a little bit more if some of his old linebacker compadres would have just decided to retire and left him to kind of man the middle by himself. But it is what it is, and he still has the talent to be able to finish in the top 10 linebackers this season. Now, number 9. Maybe this is a little bit out of left field. but that seems to be a little bit of my rankings compared to some of the professionals like myself. But I have Bobby Okereke for the New York Giants. Bobby signed a big-time deal this offseason with the Giants. I think the second or third largest linebacker contract this offseason, which was a little bit of a surprise. But what it means is that he's the guy there. He is the man. And this is another team that keeps the linebackers on the field. So again, I expect 95% of snaps for Bobby this season. I expect over 160 tackles. I'm also very curious to see when he is kind of the man, how it plays out. He was great last year in Indy, next to Zaire Franklin. Not really sure who was the 1 and who was the 2 there. Kind of a 1A, 1B situation with Shaquille Leonard out for the majority of the year. But he is going to start every game. He is going to be on the field every game, all of the snaps for this Giants defense. So this one is just a basic math problem of the probability of him getting into the top 10 because of stats, because of opportunity, is there. And don't get me wrong, he's a good athlete. He's a good player. He's probably not a guy that a lot of people are thinking at the top of their draft. They might even be thinking Zaire Franklin over him, and I get it. I understand. But I just think that there's something to be said with how this Giants defense is going to play and the defensive front that they have that's going to allow him, again, just like Roquan, just like Nakobe, he's going to be untouched a lot because those guys are big, mean in front of him, and they're going to have to double-team some of those blockers. The blockers are going to have to double-team some of the Giants' defensive line to keep the Leonard Williams, to keep the Kayvon Thibodeaux at bay. So number 9, Bobby Okereke, New York Giants. And number 10, it's a little tough, when you're like, well, I can only talk about one more person, and it's a little bit more of a crapshoot. But I went with Logan Wilson of the Cincinnati Bengals. And this is one that I'm okay to be wrong on if I am. It's just, he's a strong, consistent linebacker, and it's just like the last 2 years, he's felt like he's on the cusp of just turning into that guy in fantasy. He's got big playability, the kind of player that can win you a week. Very similar to the Dre Greenlaws, the Roquan Smiths of the world. Pick 6 in his nature. Interceptions in general in his nature. Can rush the quarterback. He had 124 tackles last season. But if he wants to finish in the top 10, he needs to top 150 total tackles. I think he'll do it, and I think he'll add a few interceptions as well, which will keep him up in that higher range of scoring. Now, that's the 10th linebacker that we're talking about. Now, there's guys that we could talk about. I did consider T.J. Watt as a linebacker, and I considered Micah Parsons as a D lineman. The reasoning really for that is just because Parsons has been rumored to be playing defensive end only coming into this season. We'll see what actually happens. I doubt that's what's going to happen. But where is T.J. Watt? 100% could be a miss in my top 10. But the only way it's a miss is based upon a massive sack season. TJ Watt's done it multiple times. I get it. He is very, very good. But because he doesn't get heavy in the tackles like the guys on this list, he is going to have to get 18 sacks or more to crack the top 10, in my opinion. Now, can he do it? Absolutely he can. Will he do it? I say no because he's not in my top 10. 18 sacks is a lot. But before you're like, what about him? What about him? Listen, I get it. But you got to pick 10. And these are the guys with my gut. These are the guys that the data tells me this is where we're going to go. This is where it's going to end this season. So let's move on to defensive ends. DN number 1. Well, if you listened to my previous podcast, I went over my top 5 overall for the position. So obviously, you should probably know that Myles Garrett is my DN1 this year. He's always been a dominant pass rusher since he's came into the NFL. One of the best. He's got a new D coordinator, Mr. Schwartz. Jim Schwartz's defense, always, especially in the first year that he brings in his defensive scheme, is so friendly to DNs. Sack-wise, tackle-wise, getting pressure to the quarterback-wise. Now, typically, Schwartz does a lot of rotation with his D-line, a heavier rotation than most. Myles Garrett ain't coming off the field, I'll tell you that right now. But everybody else will probably rotate around, keeping them all fresh. But the fact of the matter is that the scheme is so beneficial to Garrett, I'm expecting at least a 16-sack season for Myles Garrett. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets up to 20. I really wouldn't. I think the offense is going to be better with an entire offseason with the massage general. And I think that when you look at it as a whole, Garrett just has we know he's a great player. This is just turning it into he's going to get that DN1 this season. Now, number 2 could be a bit of a question mark for some people, but I have Brian Burns as my DN number 2 for the Carolina Panthers. Listen, Brian Burns, in my eyes, is this year's Max Crosby. Crosby, before last season, if you remember, got his massive contract deal. He hadn't really performed as a fantasy level. I mean, he was good. He just wasn't like top 5 good. We talked on the offseason. I told you that he was my breakout candidate for the Raiders. And what did he do? He put up DN1 numbers. Brian Burns is on the cusp of putting it all together and becoming that force that Max Crosby became last year. There is a reason the Panthers refused to move him during their trade frenzy. Probably every team in the league called about Brian Burns, and they said that they're not trading him. He is a key focal point of this team. So Burns is set to see 14 sacks and I think close to 75 tackles this year. Very, very good season by any stretch. The tackles are the part that will boost him ahead of other people. 14 sacks, though, is absolutely in his wheelhouse. Biggest concern is how is the Carolina offense going to look? Brian Burns hasn't had a good Carolina offense in probably his whole career, and he's still been putting up numbers. I expect this to be a better coached team than he's had in the past few seasons, so I expect to be in a little bit better situational play for Brian Burns coming into this year. Number 3 on my list is Max Crosby. I don't think he really goes anywhere. He had an impressive breakout season, and it wasn't solely due to his sack numbers. He increased his tackles from the previous year by 30. That's the baseline points that you love to see. Yes, they drafted Tyree Wilson. Yes, they still have Chandler Jones. And Jones was there last year, so I'm not concerned about him. I think that Jones and Wilson will be the ones that, if any, are rotating snaps. And I think that Tyree Wilson has good run defense, and so that might hurt some of his tackles. But the fact of the matter is, he's still going to be a stud this season. He is just going to be good. He's a strong player. He plays with tenacity. He didn't give up after he played. He got his big money. He, in fact, had his best year ever after he got his big money. So you'll love to see it. Max Crosby's my number 3 defensive end this season. Number 4 was our sack leader from last year, Nick Bosa of the San Francisco 49ers. Bosa's just a force, man. You watch this dude play, and it is just nuts. He's one of the best sack masters in the game today. But again, the chances that he hits 18.5 sacks again this year is pretty slim. He'll be up there, but he's not going to get to 18.5. And if he does, or goes past it, I'm elated because I got some Bosa stock. Now, he consistently hits about 50 tackles a year. I mean, it is almost to the exact amount of tackles in his seasons. But because of that, without 18 and a half sacks, he won't end up as DN1. Still think he's about a 14 sack guy, but that'll drop him from, DN1 consideration to top 5 consideration. Still a guy that you love to have on your team because of his ability to get multiple sacks in a game. You love to see that on a week-to-week basis and just get that explosive point total that might help you play against a great offensive output by your opponent. So number 5, I have Micah Parsons for the Cowboys. As I said, I put Parsons in the DN spot because he's rumored to be playing that full time this season. Once again, we'll see. Personally, hope not, because that hurts his data, or not data, but his point totals. It ends up being data, I guess. But it's where you should be playing him anyway if he's eligible in that position. And that's the thing, is that we talked about TJ Watt and we talked about Micah Parsons. Why is that, Seth? Because a lot of these guys have multiple position eligibility. LB, D-line, linebacker, defensive end. The easiest thing to do is have an edge rush position, and that it gives a little bit more value towards sacks. And we talked about that last week. But that was last week. This is now. Parsons has put up back-to-back 13 sack seasons. But his tackles are where he needs to excel. Why was he so great his rookie year? And then he was still good, but not nearly as good his sophomore year. Well, he went from 13 and a half sacks to 13. Not a big difference. But he went from 84 tackles to 62. Big difference. That's where it matters. That's where we're missing the points. If he is playing the linebacker spot in that Dallas defense, he needs to get to 80-plus tackles. If not, he's going to need to win the sack title to get higher than 5 as D-end rank. That's just where it's at, man. Max Crosby gets more tackles than him. Nick Bosa averages about the same amount, but has gotten, multiple more sacks than he has every year. Burns, I think, will be more tackles than him. Myles Garrett will probably be at least 15 to 20 more tackles than him. So Parsons either has to have some monstrosity games with some more of those fumbles returned for touchdowns and interceptions, or he has to just go out of his mind in sacks. We'll see which one it is. I like Parsons to be able to put it all together this year, but I just like the other guys a little bit more because of the consistency that I've seen in their play so far. Moving on to number 6, let's talk about play so far with a guy that has none, and that's Will Anderson of the Houston Texans. He is my 6th defensive end. But Seth, he's a rookie. You're damn right he is, and he is a good one. And I'm practicing what I preach here. I've been talking about him all offseason. I'm not somebody that's just saying he's going to be great, and then I won't put him in my rankings, because he will finish in the top 10 his rookie year. I am sure of it. Regardless, or if he gets injured, no. But everything we talk about is we believe every player is going to be healthy forever, because I don't want to put that bad juju on anybody. So Will Anderson, polished pass rusher coming out of Alabama. I expect him to hit at least 10 sacks his rookie season. Probably 4 of them on Will Levis alone. I hope he throws a banana at her. Or no, he likes eating bananas. He doesn't like milk. What a weird dude. Anyway, with Ryans as his defensive coordinator / head coach, he's running the defense, let's be honest. He's going to love his new toy that is Will Anderson Jr. And I will be here for it. Think of all the ways that they can use him. He could be the Micah Parsons style player for this Texans defense. Texas uses these guys differently, right? And when we look at everything, you also have to look at the Texas offense. Listen, are they going to be terrible? Yes. Well, maybe not. Are they going to be top half the league in offense? No, absolutely not. They're going to be a bottom half team. So, plenty of opportunities for Mr. Anderson to make an impact. So excited to see this guy play this year. I have all the faith in the world that he is going to be a absolute gem for years to come. So number 7, wild card pick? Maybe. Until you put on the tape and look at his stats. This is Jalen Phillips of the Miami Dolphins. First round draft pick 2 years ago. He's on a stacked defense first. They have put together a ridiculous amount of talent. It almost feels like it's, the too big to fail and then they're going to be terrible, but I'm not going to put that bad juju. I think that this is going to be Jalen Phillips' breakout year. You got Bradley Chubb. You've got Christian Wilkins. This defense is going to just eat up blockers. And Phillips will use his side and speed to put QBs on their back all season long. And with last year, his sack total dropping from 8.5 to 7, I think, from his rookie year to his sophomore year, a lot of owners might be concerned and be willing to move him for less if you're in a dynasty league. If you're in a redraft league, dude, he's not on people's radar. Christian Wilkins is. Bradley Chubb might be. Jalen Phillips is my dark horse for winning Defensive Player of the Year. Yeah. I think that he has all the ability in the world when you look at his pressures, his hurries, his sacks, and how he was getting it done last year and how he basically just figured it out and it clicked. I think Jalen Phillips has the ability to end up as defensive end ranked number 1 this year. But I put him at number 7 because he's on a talented team and it might end up being more of a, everybody eats kind of situation. But if you're looking for a guy late in drafts that might end up helping you win your league, Jalen Phillips is the name you need to write down. Number 8, the other Bosa bro, Joey Bosa. And honestly, this is the toughest one to put in my top 10. But as I said, I'm going to assume health. I love all these players. I want to see them on the field. It's much more fun when they're playing. And when healthy, Joey Bosa is a fantastic pass rusher. In fact, 10 sacks should come very easy for him because he has never not been over 10 sacks when playing 16 games or more. The issue has just been playing 16 games or more the last few seasons. So I'm hoping that this Chargers defense finally puts it together this year. I'm hoping that the offense is explosive enough so that Bosa can get to, as I like to say, pin his ears back and go after the QB. And he is. He's in a division that's very pass heavy with the Chiefs, with the Raiders, with the Broncos. So he should have opportunities to go and get them sacks. Number 9, I have our first second-year player, and that is Aiden Hutchinson. Guy played great as a rookie, and I expect more of the same. What did I say last offseason? You watch him play, you see the motor. You see him not quit on plays. That turned into points in fantasy this season. I said it would, it did, and I'm expecting that he's going to have another great year. Now, granted, that does not mean that I think that this defensive end is going to get another 3 interceptions. Insane, by the way. And his 3rd interception, he literally was playing coverage as like a cornerback. They were trying to do like a surprise play type thing. I don't know what was going on, but it was really fun to watch. So go ahead and just Google his interceptions and watch how that worked out. But like I said, expecting 3 interceptions this year might be a bit optimistic. But his sack number should rise past 10 this season. And I expect to see a slight jump from 50 tackles to about 65-ish. Like I said, he finished right around, depending on scoring, right around DN 12 to 13 last year. Sneaking up a few more spots because he gets a little bit more polished, gets a little bit more playing time. And let's face it, everybody's excited about this Lions offense and this Lions team. The defense got better too, man. They got a lot more ability to cover people. And so if those corners aren't getting beat as bad as they were last year, you're going to get a little bit more time for a guy like Aiden Hutchinson, whose motor doesn't quit, to get to the quarterback. So Aiden Hutchinson, my number 9 defensive end this year. So that brings us to number 10. The final player in my top 10 defensive ends is from New York Giants. His rookie year showed him as an explosive athletic pass rusher. Hit 8 sacks and 50 total tackles that season. And I'm talking about Azeez Ojulari. What? No Kayvon Thibodeau? So listen, before you unfollow the podcast, hear me out. And don't do that because the Fat Boys are on the same channel. I don't want you to miss out on their good takes just because you don't like listening to me. But hear me out. Hear me out. Azeez had a great rookie year. He looked the part of a great pass rusher on a very bad Giants team. Sophomore year, last year, was spent mostly injured. Missed the first half the season or more. So he's not up, if you're just looking at stats, he's not up at the top of any of these lists, right? But look deeper into his stats. Look deeper into the game tape. He came back at the end of the year, and what did he do? He was eased back in the first game, didn't have a high snap percentage. And after that game, these were the stats. Game 1, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble, 2 tackles. Game 2, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble, 1 fumble recovery, 1 tackle. Game 3, 2 sacks, 4 tackles. Game 4, half a sack, 1 forced fumble, 4 tackles. Game 5, 1 sack, 2 tackles. Last game of the regular season, he did not have a point. You know why? Because they only played him 7 snaps because they were headed to the playoffs. Azeez Ojulari is taking advantage of everything he can with that defensive line. The Leonard Williams, the Kayvon Thibodeau. I know there's another great guy that's just escaping my head. That D-line is very, very good. And Azeez is going to be the better pass rusher this season than Kayvon Thibodeau. And guess what? He's going to cost a fraction of the price. Name value, man. Go for Azeez, and then hopefully somebody tells you Gazoon tight, and then be happy. So again, top 10 DNs. Number 1, Myles Garrett. Number 2, Brian Burns. Number 3, Max Crosby. 4, Nick Bosa. 5, Micah Parsons. 6, Will Anderson. 7, dark horse Jalen Phillips. 8, Joey Bosa. 9, Aiden Hutchinson. And 10, Azeez Ojulari. Linebacker ranks. 1, Roquan Smith. 2, Foyesade Alokin. 3, Nick Bolton. 4, Bobby Wagner. 5, Pete Werner. 6, Nakobe Dean and that Eagles defense. Number 7, Dre Greenlaw. Number 8, Devin White with no Tom Brady. Number 9, Bobby Okereke. And number 10, Logan Wilson. Listen, love it or hate it, go watch these players, look at the last few years and tell me that I'm not crazy at least. You look at it, you start to think through the process, and it starts to make more sense. With defense, when they're priming for a breakout, the stats don't always hit the sheet. You can look at the player football focus stuff, or you can just go watch some game tape and see how these guys are playing. But again, those 10 guys on linebackers and DNs, there's some guys there that aren't going to go blatantly obvious high, but they're going to finish high in the rankings. Those are the guys you can get, feel good about, and move into the future with the opportunity to make sure that your defense wins fantasy. See you next week.